You know what's constantly being talked about? Vitamin D.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone seems to be taking it.
There's a supplement for this, a supplement for that. But then you hear all this conflicting advice.
Mm-hmm. About how much you really need or the best way to get it.
Exactly. And does it actually do all the things people claim? It's kind of confusing trying to sort it all out, isn't it?
It really can be. So to help you get a handle on it, we've really immersed ourselves in a bunch of different sources.
Right.
We looked at insights from, experts, an endocrinologist and a dermatologist.
Good mix.
Yeah, and a big review of the science published in Nutrients back in April 2025.
Right.
Plus a major meta-analysis from The Lancet, also April 2025.
Okay, so recent stuff.
Very. And we also pulled in info from the National Institutes of Health, their Office of Dietary Supplements, and checked the recommendations from the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, trying to get that, well-rounded view.
So our goal, the mission for you listening to this deep dive is really to clear things up.
Exactly. Pull out the clear, actionable bits about vitamin D, what it really does.
And how to make sense of all that contradictory advice.
Right. So let's kick things off with the basics, the core functions. What are its main jobs in the body?
Okay.
Well, at its heart, the most critical thing vitamin D does is help us absorb calcium.
Ah, calcium. That's the big one for bones.
That's its most solid, well-established role, definitely. Essential for keeping bones strong, preventing osteoporosis, where bones get brittle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's key for preventing osteomalacia, which is like a softening of the bones.
Right. And rickets, too? Wasn't that mentioned?
Yes, rickets. Causes weak bones, skeletal issues in kids, and sadly, it hits Black children harder.
Okay, so the bone health connection is super clear. But I feel like I hear about it doing other things, too.
You do. And it does. The NIH points out it's involved in other important stuff.
Like what?
Like muscle movement, helping nerves talk to each other.
Nerve communication. Interesting.
And it's part of our immune defense system.
Yeah.
Helps us fight off bacteria, viruses.
Okay, so definitely a key player beyond just bones. Now, here's where, for me at least, the waters get a bit muddy. I've seen so many articles, studies suggesting vitamin D helps with, everything. Cancer prevention, brain health.
Ah, yes. That's a really common observation. And, there has been a lot of research exploring potential links.
Right. Like reduced risk for certain cancers, type 2 diabetes, cognitive decline, heart disease.
Even autoimmune conditions, infectious diseases. It's a long list.
So what's the deal? Is it true?
Well, this is where the science gets nuanced. You see these initial studies, maybe smaller ones, showing a possible connection. And that generates excitement.
Okay, I sense a but coming.
Yeah, exactly. When you look at the really large, high-quality reviews, those meta-analyses, like the Lancet one from April 25, a different picture often emerges. For most of those potential benefits, the evidence just isn't conclusive.
Not conclusive or just not there.
Often inconclusive, sometimes insignificant. Like, that Lancet study specifically found that taking vitamin D supplements didn't protect against respiratory infections.
Huh. Because I definitely heard chatter suggesting it might help with colds and flu.
There was some suggestion, yes, but the bigger analysis didn't bear that out. It's kind of the scientific process, right? Early hints need stronger confirmation.
Okay, that makes sense. What about that nutrients review then? Also from April 25. It sounded pretty strong about colorectal cancer prevention. Crucial, I think, was the word.
It did sound strong, and it definitely got attention, but we need to look at the context.
Okay.
So yes, they talked about anti-inflammatory, antioxidant effects, potentially helping with colorectal cancer.
Right.
But the review itself didn't prove vitamin D prevents or treats it. And crucially, a lot of the studies they included weren't like the gold standard,
Right.
Meaning maybe not enough randomized controlled trials, or maybe not enough focus on people who actually had the disease already.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So less definitive than it sounds.
Exactly. It suggests it's an interesting area for more research, definitely, but it underlines that our understanding is still, pretty early stage on that specific link, more of a lead than a lock.
Got it. More of a stay tuned, maybe.
That's a good way to put it. And this kind of caution, it's reflected in what the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force says.
Well, yeah. What's their take?
Well, they've actually recommended against routine screening for vitamin D deficiency in the general adult population.
Again, screening.
Both in 2014 and again in 2021. They just didn't find enough evidence to say widespread screening was beneficial.
Wow.
And even more recently, a draft recommendation from 2024 suggests not using vitamin D supplements specifically to prevent falls or fractures in older adults.
That seems counterintuitive given the bone health link.
It does, but that's where the evidence review led them for that specific preventative use in that group. It seems the initial huge optimism might have outpaced the really solid proof for some of these broader claims.
Right. So the expert you consulted, the endocrinologist, what did they think about all this?
The take was basically that, yeah, the really broad spectrum of roles people often attribute to vitamin D is probably an overestimation.
An overestimation.
And that this overestimation directly leads to a lot of the confusion we see.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's vital for those core things like calcium and bones.
Mm-hmm.
But the evidence for using it widely to prevent or treat a whole host of other diseases, it's just not that robust right now.
Okay. So maybe not the miracle cure-all, some headlines suggest.
Yeah.
But we started out saying lots of people don't get enough. Who's actually at risk of being deficient?
That's a super important question because even with the debate about benefits for other conditions, there's general agreement that deficiency is a real issue for many.
How many?
Well, estimates vary, but maybe around 25% of Americans, could be 40% of Europeans.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, and surprisingly, it's common even in really sunny places, Middle East, Australia.
That is surprising. Why? What makes someone more likely to be low?
Several things. Getting older is a big one. Our skin just doesn't make vitamin D as efficiently from sun as we age.
How much less efficient?
It drops maybe 13% per decade, roughly.
Okay.
And having darker skin. Melanin, the pigment, acts like a natural sunblock against the UVB rays needed.
So it takes longer in the sun?
Much longer, sometimes needing 3 to 5 times more exposure, could be up to 90% less efficient production compared to very light skin.
Yeah, that's significant.
What else? Certain medical conditions are a factor, anything that limits fat absorption.
Because vitamin D is fat soluble.
Exactly. So things like Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, celiac disease, even having had gastric bypass surgery.
Right. Makes sense.
Obesity is another one. Vitamin D gets stored away in fat cells, so less circulates in the blood. People with obesity might need 2 or 3 times the intake.
2 to 3 times. Wow.
Yeah. Also, pregnancy and breastfeeding increase needs.
Okay.
Where you live matters. Northern latitudes, less strong sun, especially in winter.
Yeah, less opportunity.
Certain medications can interfere too, like some for HIV/AIDS or seizures.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, since the liver and kidneys are involved in activating vitamin D in the body.
So liver or kidney disease could be a problem.
Yes, advanced liver or kidney disease can impair that activation process.
So quite a list of risk factors.
Yeah.
How would you even know if you were deficient? Are there, obvious signs?
Often there aren't. It can be completely asymptomatic.
No symptoms at all.
Or very vague ones. In more severe or long-term cases, maybe fatigue, some bone pain, muscle weakness, or aches.
Things you might easily blame on something else.
Exactly. So the only really definitive way to know is a blood test. It measures the level in your blood.
Okay. So let's talk about getting it naturally. Sunlight. It's supposed to be the best source, right?
It's definitely the way our bodies are designed to make most of it.
But we're always told to cover up, use sunscreen. Skin cancer risk. How do you square that circle?
That really is the core dilemma, isn't it? Our skin uses UVB rays from the sun to make vitamin D, but those same UVB rays, along with UVA rays, the tanning and aging ones, increase skin cancer risk.
So how much sun is needed?
It's tricky to say precisely. For lighter skin, maybe 10-20 minutes a few times a week on some exposed skin, like arms and legs.
Okay. And darker skin?
Needs longer, remember? Maybe 3 to 5 times longer to get the same amount.
That sounds so variable. Depends on the season, time of day?
Hugely variable.
Yeah.
Time of year, absolutely. Time of day is UVB is strongest midday, roughly 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
When the sun's highest.
Right. Early morning, late afternoon, winter months, the sun's angle means less UVB gets through the atmosphere.
Okay, and clouds, windows.
Yeah, clouds reduce it. Windows block almost all UVB. Even air pollution can cut down the amount reaching you.
It's not very reliable. What about sunscreen? Does it totally block production, like people say?
That seems to be a bit of a myth, or at least an overstatement.
Oh.
While sunscreen obviously filters UVB, newer studies suggest that with typical use, meaning how people actually apply it, maybe not perfectly or enough.
Right, realistically.
It doesn't seem to completely stop vitamin D production for most people.
Okay, that's interesting.
But still, relying only on sun is unpredictable. And given the very real skin cancer risks, the American Academy of Dermatology actually recommends against intentionally getting sun exposure or using tanning beds to get vitamin D.
Okay, so sun is complicated.
Hmm.
That brings us to food.
Hmm.
Can we just eat our way to enough vitamin D?
Honestly, it's pretty difficult through diet alone. Foods are generally not great sources.
Really? What are the best ones then?
The best natural sources are fatty fish, think trout, salmon, tuna, mackerel,
Okay, oily fish.
fish liver oils like cod liver oil,
Mhm.
and some mushrooms, specifically ones exposed to UV light.
UV mushrooms, okay.
Smaller amounts are in egg yolks, cheese, a bit in beef liver.
Not exactly things everyone eats every day in large amounts.
Not at all, which is why fortification is common in some countries.
Like adding it to milk.
Exactly. Milk, some breakfast cereals, orange juice, yogurts, plant-based milks often have it added.
But is it enough? Like, how much milk would you need?
Well, let's take milk as an example. It usually has around 120 international units, IU, per cup.
Okay.
The basic recommendation for adults under 70 is at least 600 IU per day.
So you'd need 5 cups of milk.
About that, yeah, just to hit the minimum every single day.
Okay, that's a lot of milk. So food alone is tough.
It really is for most people to consistently reach the target levels.
So balancing the tricky sun exposure, the limited food sources, it does seem complicated. What are some practical ways then to make sure we get enough without, going overboard?
It really comes down to finding a sensible, balanced approach.
Okay, like what?
Like maybe some sensible sun exposure, short periods, outside peak hours, being mindful of protection like shade, clothing, and yes, sunscreen, SPF 30+.
Sensible sun. Got it.
Then consciously trying to include those vitamin D-rich foods, even if they aren't packed with it, every bit helps.
Fatty fish, fortified foods.
Exactly. And then considering supplementation if it's appropriate.
And when would it be appropriate? Who should consider supplements?
That's really a conversation to have with a doctor or healthcare professional.
Especially if you have risk factors.
Definitely.
Yeah.
If you have those risk factors we talked about, or if a blood test actually shows you're low.
Right. And if you do supplement...
The key is, don't overdo it. Stick to recommended doses.
Because too much is bad.
Yes. Vitamin D toxicity is real, though usually from very high-dose supplements over time, not food or sun.
What happens if you take too much?
It can cause things like nausea, vomiting, muscle weakness, confusion, dehydration.
Okay, unpleasant.
And in severe cases, it can lead to kidney stones, even kidney failure, heart rhythm problems. It can be very serious.
Wow. Okay, so definitely don't assume more is better.
Absolutely not. It's crucial to remember you can't get toxic levels from the sun. Your skin actually stops producing it once you've made enough.
Ah, that's good to know. A built-in safety mechanism.
Exactly. The whisk is really with supplements.
So the main message seems to be about balance and being informed, right?
Yeah. Perfectly put. Like the expert we consulted said, be mindful of your levels, especially if you're high risk. But if you're not deficient, just taking massive doses probably isn't adding extra benefits and could carry risks.
Their advice was?
Basically, you definitely want sufficient levels, but more is not always better. The evidence just doesn't support that more is better idea if you're already sufficient.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, vitamin D is clearly essential, no doubt about that, especially for bones.
Absolutely fundamental.
But the science on all those other claimed benefits, still evolving, a lot of debate, many initial claims maybe not holding up so strongly.
Right. The picture is complex and still developing.
And getting enough naturally from sun and food. It can be challenging, inconsistent, and has its own risks or limitations.
Definitely requires conscious effort and isn't always straightforward.
Supplementation can help, but needs caution. Don't just pop high doses without a reason or checking with a doctor.
That's the key takeaway on supplements, caution, and professional advice.
So, thinking about all this, the ongoing research, your own personal risk factors, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it, for you, the listener, what are the most reliable, the safest ways you can ensure you're getting adequate vitamin D without overdoing it?
It's a very personal calculation in some ways.
And maybe what specific questions should you bring up with your doctor next time to figure out your best approach?
That's definitely some food for thought.